It's 28 degrees here in Abuja. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Neota Egbe.
A very wonderful morning to all of you out there. I'm Kayla Megwa, and this is Sunrise Daily.
Today's date. I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning and welcome to the program. Oh, we're definitely taking you somewhere out of town, out of Lagos and out of Abuja.
See that beautiful skyline? That skyline is that of Gombe. Yes, central area in Gombe. And the temperature at the moment in that town is about 32 degrees centigrade, possibly going to go up to 41 degrees centigrade. Now, that is hot if you're thinking of being hot. But Gombe is an ancient town filled with history.
Very historical town. You're absolutely correct about that with Gombe. Have you been to Gombe before, Nelta?
Yes, I have.
I love this city, except the heat. I like everything except the heat in Gombe. But it's one of those towns where you get a sense that the people are very committed to their city. It's one of those places where a lot of people from Gombe don't really move out, so to speak, because they really love their city. And there you're seeing it on your screens, right? That is Gombe Central area, by the way. Very easygoing neighborhoods, very easygoing people. We're not seeing a lot of cars on the street, but it does get a little rowdy sometimes in Gombe. But there you have it, the skyline of Gombe Central area right there on your screens right now. If you are from Gombe or you just got back from Gombe, I think a few of our members of our crew just got back from Gombe as well. If you are from Gombe, hey, that's your city right there. And if you want to talk to us about your city, you can actually say something in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Something we may not know about your city.
Just before Aya comes in, Gombe is one of those areas that are known for peanuts. That's groundnuts, cotton, and a local trade center in sorghum, millets, cowpeas, cassava. You just mentioned this is just a few of the things that you find in Gombe.
So farmers.
Very rich culture, very rich people in agriculture.
Lovely.
Ayo.
Lovely.
Well,
Ayo.
Yes, and if you ever thought that Gombe is just one of those dry lands, they don't have anything, you can see the infrastructure. It's not just a nomadic environment. They don't just have huts and hamlets. They do have houses, they have bridges, and all of that. And Markwai, I beg your pardon, Nyata, you just took that right out of my mouth. That Gombe State has coal, limestone, granite, lead, zinc, granites, of course, lots of sand and all of that. And the economy of that state is of the state. I mean, a number of times we've seen some reports, I think, about the state of the states. Gombe doesn't do very, very badly. And you know, kudos to the people who have embraced whatever it is that their government is doing. Well, Gombe is not the only one in the news here today. Let's take you through some of the dailies to see what else is in the news.
We begin a look at the papers this morning with the Vanguard newspaper, which leads with the good news. Dangote Refinery cuts diesel jet A1 prices to $9.40 and $9.80. Find the details on the inside pages, but look at the top right of the page. Diesel price have gradually reduced from February until now. And some other details right there. Price cuts to impact nation's economy, according to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, will reduce pressure on foreign exchange, according to CPPE. It's relief to transport operators, according to Alban. Details on page 19. That trending story of bullying in a school, well, British International School shot over bullying of students. More of that on the inside pages of the paper this morning. The next paper is the Nigerian News Direct, which also leads with a similar story. Again, Dangote refinery crashes diesel aviation fuel prices, pegs 940 and 980 per litre respectively, as FG unveils initiatives to attract $10 billion investment in 18 months. NNPC Limited, New Cross resumed production at Aoba Field. Find the details of that story on the inside pages of the paper. The Guardian newspaper this morning has this on its front page. Fraud allegations and money laundering. EFCC intensifies manhunt for Bello. Detains Sirica, freezes 300 accounts. 300 accounts, wow. Well, the details you'll find on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Nigerian Tribune. EFCC exposes Bello, Grill, Sirica, freezes 300 accounts. And look at the riders. Says ex-Kogi governor took $720,000 from state accounts to pay child school fees. Begins probe of contract awards in presidency, National Assembly, judiciary, others. Explains how banks lost 8 billion naira to electronic transfer in 2022. Nigeria losing $500 million annually to cybercrime. Stop harassing me. Respect rule of law. Yaya Bello tells EFCC. Details on pages 4 and 5 of the paper this morning. This Nigeria newspaper has this on its own front page. Ex-aviation minister Sirica in EFCC net over 8 billion naira fraud. Anti-graft agency boss Olukoyede vows to resign if Yahya Bello is not prosecuted over 80.2 billion naira alleged fraud. Details of that story on the inside pages of the paper. Blueprint newspaper. Bello to EFCC on 80.2 billion naira fraud. Vacate arrest warrant, I will show up in court. And look at the riders. Iguatu fixes May 10 to rule on application. How Bello snubbed our invitation, according to EFCC. Anti-graft agency grills ex-minister Sirica over Air Nigeria. That's the lead story of Blueprint newspaper this morning. The Leadership newspaper. Bleeding economy. Stakeholders want stiffer penalties for oil thieves. The infographics on the front page have figures. Those figures tell one story or the other. Grab a copy of the paper for more details. And the next one is the Daily Independent newspaper this morning. Airlines set to reduce fares as MAN sees inflation easing. MAN, CPPE, NECA, Lord Dangote for cutting diesel Jet A1 prices. Say domestic production holds key to nation's economic recovery. See impact on cost of production, job creation, pressure on forex. The details of that on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Right under the picture on the front page is electricity tariff. Rep Speaker mulls bill for National Assembly stakeholders consultation before hike. Details of that continue on the inside pages. Daily Times newspaper leads with that story. Electricity tariff. Speaker to sponsor bill for compulsory NAS stakeholders consultation. Find the details of the story on page 4 of the paper this morning. New Telegraph leads with Imo, Ihedioha, BOT member, ex-rep member, LG party chairman, dump PDP. Well, the details you'll find on page 4. Look at the riders in gale of resignations. Ex-governor says party fails to embark on internal reform, enforce its own rules, offer credible opposition. We close this session with the Nigerian Observer, which says equity investors lose 3 trillion naira as traders rejig portfolios after CBN rate hike. The details of that story continue on the inside pages.
But then one of the things that would hit you is that one about the Dangote refinery cutting the cost of diesel and aviation fuel to what, 980 and 960 or thereabouts. Interesting times ahead, as some will say, when the country works, when everyone comes together, things begin to work out for everyone. How is it possible that all the players can just get in there and do what needs to be done so that this country will move forward. I mean, yes, we're talking about Dangote refinery. There are other people who are doing different things differently and contributing to this economy. If all of us come together and are doing our own bit, this nation and the economy will definitely move further than we all are thinking that it should get to where it needs to get to. For the sake of tomorrow, Kayla is smiling half and half here. But
I mean, it's one of those situations where you're thinking, okay, so what's so difficult in everyone coming together to do what's right? Can we just do what's right? Look at this headline here from the Leadership newspaper. Stakeholders want stiffer penalties for oil thieves. More on that from page 4, by the way, of Leadership newspaper. The menace of oil theft. 6,464 illegal refineries deactivated in 2 years. 4,876 illegal connections to pipelines removed in 2 years. Illegal connections to pipelines. 9,000 NNPCL records. NNPCL records 9,000 infractions on pipelines in 1 year. It's almost as though we're looking at the country and thinking this is not ours. Let's take what we can and just go with it. And I think that is one of the areas that needs to be addressed deliberately. I really want to call out the National Orientation Agency on this one, because that sense of ownership is what's lacking so much in this country.
you know, Kayla, talking about the pipeline insertions and all of that, the thievery in the oil and gas sector, there are those who argue that it can't happen unless it's from the inside. So the people who are working in that industry, are they properly taken care of? I'm going to quote the IGP during the police summit where he talks about welfare of the personnel going hand in hand with the effectiveness of the personnel. If they are taken care of as they should, if you're not flaunting in their face your wealth or how much gains you're getting from that sector where they are, they would not want to be like you. So the question is, how are you living your life? You the boss, you the one who's leading. How are you living? Are you an example, a good example to the people? I'm not justifying doing wrong. You do wrong, you do the time. But the question is, you who's leading, are you showing the good example that you should? Talking about examples, yesterday there was that, a couple of days ago, that video that went viral about the girl that was being bullied in school. Is there a law against bullying in our country?
That story, you know, everything that happens in Nigeria, sometimes it feels like it's very complex when things go wrong or when we see things go wrong. Most of the time it's not. It actually boils down to simple things, family unit issues. When that video went viral, you know, the one about the girl from Leeds International British School here in Abuja, a lot of things came to my mind, you know, looking at that. What's happened to the values? Family values. Where did you learn to slap people like that? Where did you learn to do that from? Where did you learn to belittle people like that from? It's such a problem. I mean, we did a story about it yesterday. Whatever the situation was, look, bullying in itself needs to be tackled directly. And I really want to talk about the Minister of Education on this one. I know that they're wading into this matter. Everyone is trying to get into this situation to bring it, you know, to bring it to some kind of resolution. But the truth is, you see that anti-bullying policy that comes from the schools, that anti-bullying policy needs to be enforced. It is something that the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Women Affairs, the National Orientation Agency, everyone needs to get in on this. Why? Because a lot of the things that we see happen subsequently. We see people loot national treasure. We see people do all of these things. It's all the offshoot of bullying. It's bullying. The idea that you can treat things that you feel are less than yours and get away with it. Treat it badly and get away with it. We have to be able to start curbing these things from the get-go. And that's where I am on this matter.
Indeed, that's all we want to see is a nation that works and it's beneficial to every citizen and the nation itself benefits from that. Well, we'll take a moment and we're back to continue the conversation today. What are we looking at? Again, looking at the laws of our land. What's happening today? There's a Justice Summit going on at the moment in Abuja, looking at how to enforce the laws that need to be enforced. That is being convened by the Attorney General of the Federation, the Justice Summit happening here in Abuja, convened by the Attorney General of the Federation. how do we ensure effective justice delivery in the country? That's one of the things happening today. So again, boils down to that thing Kayla talked about, to ensure that these things are checked from the get-go.
I mean, summits are wonderful. I'm beginning to get a little, bored with summits and symposiums and things like that. But yeah, that Justice Summit is going on. But the enforcement has to be apparent to one and all. So that Justice Summit will be there to give you all of the details of that summit today.
There's also the Minister of Solid Minerals Development talking about the revocation of dormant mining licenses. That's the other matter that will be going on today. The Minister of Solid Minerals Development looking at how to... Well, some licenses are going to be revoked because they've been dormant for a while. Ayo, what you have on your end?
And Nyota, and of course, as you can see in the slide that was to come on, how do we ensure all-season crop supply? You know, it's possible with technology to ensure that we have all-season supply of whatever kind of crop it is. So how does that happen so that we can at least get ahead of that announcement the president made not too long after he took on the authority of the country to ensure, that we have food, and hopefully that will help to take down some of the challenges that we have in terms of inflation, because food inflation is usually the capital city of inflation in the country. So that's one of the issues to address from that particular conversation.
Indeed, well, we'll look forward to all of these happenings today and tomorrow and all of that. We need to look at exactly how to ensure that the laws of the land are enforced and followed through. That's one of the things we'll be looking at today. We'll come back from this break, the matter of the EFCC and what the chairman had to speak yesterday. Some will say he made some huge revelations. Well, listen to this report and we'll be back in a moment. Don't go away.
Cube is available in beef, chicken, jollof, and shrimp flavors at attractive prices of 100, 200, 500 naira, along with saver and super saver packs.
Terra Cube, unwrap joy, unleash taste.
New beginnings are always colorful. When we celebrate the start of life's journey, we marry in colors. With our proudly Nigerian Dulux paints, now available in any color. Express your world however you want it. Visit a Dulux color center to get any color instantly.
Dulux, let's color.
With Glovo, you order anything you want, and when you receive it, you celebrate with your whole body. Because when that tasty grilled chicken is here, the weekend starts. The ingredients for your favorite recipe just in time. And when the cake arrives, the party is on. Because receiving anything on Glovo deserves a dance. Download the app, order anything you want, and track it minute by minute until it arrives. Glovo, order anything, we deliver in minutes.
The president of the Trading and Congress of Nigeria, Comrade Engineer Festus Osifo, on behalf of the National Executive Council of the TUC, regrets to announce the cancellation of the second edition of the TUC Workers' Dinner 2024, billed for Friday, 26 April 2024. This is due to the closure of the International Conference Center for maintenance. All invited guests should kindly take note. We sincerely regret the inconvenience caused by the cancellation. Signed, Comrade Hassan Anka, Active Secretary General, TUC.
It's not the usual day at the headquarters of the EFCC. Senior journalists and members of the civil society keenly listen to Mr. Ola Olukoyede's engagement. The countenance on the face of the anti-graft boss says it all. The case against the former Kogi Governor Yahaya Bello is not a starting point of the media interaction, but it's perhaps one with a huge public interest. The EFCC is not happy with the development on the matter.
A sitting governor, because he knows he's going, move money directly from government to produce the change. Use it to pay the child school fee in advance. In advance. In dollars, yes. In dollars. $72,000 or thereabout. $720,000, sorry. $720,000 in advance. In anticipation that he was going to leave government house. In a poor state like Kogi. And you want me to close my eyes to that? Under the guise of saying I'm being used. Used by who? At this stage of my life, used by who? By who? For crying out loud. I assumed office here. I didn't initiate the case. I inherited the case file. I called for the case file. I called for the report. And I said, look, there are issues here. Do you know on my own, on my honor, I put a call across to him, which ordinarily I'm not supposed to do. Just to honor him as a governor, as a immediate past governor. Sir, there are issues. I've seen this case file. Can you just come? Let us clarify these issues. He said, sir, I thank you, my brother. I know, but I can't come. There's one lady, I don't know what her name is, maybe a senator, that she learned she had said, she has surrounded the EFCC with over 100 journalists, to come and embarrass him and intimidate him and all kind of stuff. I said, okay, if that is your fear, I'm going to pass you through my own gate, special man's gate. You will come to my floor. We will accord you that respect. I will invite my operatives. They will come and interrogate you or interview you in my own office. What could be more honorable than that? In my own office. To allay the fear. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. You know what he said? But can't they come to my village? That's what he told me. Can't they come to my village to come and say, I told you. He also he sent a message to him. My director of investigation sent a message to him.
And the EFCC chairman appears resolute. He makes some categorical statement.
Some of the people that we thought are crusaders, they are on the payroll of the man. And that's the truth. We are investigating it. We are building a case against everyone involved. Whether you are a governor or not, we are building a case. Let the whole public hear. We are building a case against those who obstructed justice. You are sitting, you have immunity today, you won't have immunity forever. We are not stopping there. It's been watch listed all over the world. It can only run. Except there's no law in this country that we are following. Let all of us declare that we are a state of barrier. Everybody go and do what they like. Like I said, I don't mind the outcome of this case, but the right thing must be done. If we don't see this case through, I won't have any moral right to accuse anybody of corruption in Nigeria. I will resign.
Yahaya Bello's case is not the only matter the agency is pursuing at the moment. More revelations emerge on the schemes that threaten the economy.
Suddenly we discovered that there are even people within the system who are doing worse than Binance. Because the P2P and all of that, it will shock you. Just yesterday, I had cause to freeze over 300 accounts. One of those accounts, we discovered that the guy that traded a volume of over 50 billion in the last 1 year. Nobody knew. outside the financial regulation. Over 300 accounts in illicit forex trading that would have led to another crash in the next 1 week if we didn't move yesterday.
What about the uproar on the cross-dresser Bobrisky and recent prosecutions over Naira mutilation?
Some people have taken us to cleaners on the issue of spraying money and all of that. It's not the work of EFCC. It's not the responsibility of EFCC. Go and look at our law very well. I'm a lawyer myself. And I did promise I won't do anything outside the rule of law. What do you understand by economic sabotage? What is the meaning of economic crime? My mandate is not only to investigate financial crimes. The mandate goes as far as investigating the economic crime.
Illegal miners are now on the radar of the anti-graft agency. Some seizures, we understand, are already made.
You see what Nigeria loses every day to illegal money, you will weep for this country. As at the last count, how many trucks of mineral resources have we seized? 40, sir. We have over 40. You know what that means? Of lithium and all kinds of expensive raw natural resources.
Olukoide then responds to questions. First, on the investigation on former Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika.
That's nothing personal. It's not about this Sirika. It's about the system. It's about our process. It's about national interest. So don't let us single out someone as if EFCC is running after this Sirika. No, please. No, it's a system. If you had asked me, are we investigating issues that have to do with Ministry of Aviation? And I will tell you straight away that yes, we are investigating it.
And then about the suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Better Edu, and some of the issues around the ministry's finances.
What we are investigating started during Better Edu. Do you think it started during Alima? Do you think it even started during Sadia? Before that ministry was established, every single kobo that was allocated to that ministry is what we are investigating.
After all said, the EFCC is asking Nigerians for support, as the chairman believes if the commission fails, the nation, according to him, has failed. Shunwa Kimbaloye, reporting for Channels Television News.
And that's what we're looking at this morning. That's what we're starting from, the response of the EFCC and all that, the huge revelations made by the EFCC chairman there. But to help us unravel all of this, we have here in the studio Dr. Tunji Abayomi, a human rights activist and a legal practitioner. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Also here is Felix Ubaudu, a former AIG Zone 7. Thank you for joining us. And a lawyer as well. Indeed, we have two lawyers in the studio, so we're going to have clarity, as some will say. Let's start up from the situation. Let's get the two of you to weigh in on this. The EFCC versus Yahaya Bello. I mean, it's been a conversation that's been on for a couple of days. Since the 18th of April, indeed, it's been back and forth and all of that. But let's start. Why do you think the EFCC is so adamant? I mean, you heard the chairman talk about the fact that I am ready to follow this to a conclusive end.
Well, is it really EFCC versus Yahaya Bello? I think
or the state?
I think it's EFCC versus corruption.
Okay.
Because I think it's Abraham Lincoln who said, if you're going to make a difference, you cannot walk on a beaten path. You're not going to make it. He said you have to burn and thirst for distinction. Just my colleague, before we came here, he mentioned an issue on which we discussed, that this nation is where it is, low, low, low below, in spite of all the endowment of the Almighty, because of corruption. The single tragedy of this nation is corruption. And why is corruption? Why does it triumph? Why does it prevail? Why does it consume everything? Because there is no control over leadership, particularly those at the helm of authority. We have a situation where individuals are far more powerful than institutions. If we look at developed nations, particularly very serious developed like America, Europe, and so on and so forth, they ensure that they protect institutional integrity And when an individual tries to corrupt it, that institution fights. And they strengthen members of that institution to ensure the paramountcy of those institutions. So if we have a leader like the present chairman of EFCC that is standing up for something instead of falling for just anything, I think this nation is lucky. We need more of him, and that is the issue confronting this nation.
Mr. Baldu, you agree with him about we needing more of men like the EFCC chairman?
Oh, sure.
But in the face of the former governor of Kogi State, when the EFCC was at his house to arrest him, they were resisted by even policemen. And you being a former policeman, the policemen were assigned to protect him. And so they resisted the EFCC, who were there to enforce. Some have wondered, come on, are we not serving the same state? So that question of institution then comes to play. Did the policemen understand that they had an institution to protect?
Not the policemen at that level. Not the policemen at that level. Those are very junior officers. You see, the point we must come to terms with, the stark reality is that we've never come to terms with the fact that there's equality before the law, irrespective of your position. That is what the law says. Whichever laws we're applying, apply to those up there and those below. Nobody enjoys any immunity. Immunity you enjoy maybe when you're in the office. His 8 years tenure has expired. They made an allegation against you. It deserves of him to go and report, hear what the allegations are, and make your defense. Or to keep on saying, oh, this, I'm this, I'm that. Some people come to say he cannot be arrested. Why? Nobody's above the law. And if you be following what they've been saying since, he was honorably invited as a VIP. He turned all of that down. If were to be some of the Nigerians down below, just go there, pick him up and take him away. They don't do you a letter. He was invited formally, refused to honor the invitation. And we're in a nation where something like this happens, somebody goes to court to get a court order. 2 courts of the same judicial, and then will go and counter that order again. It's not taking us anywhere. It doesn't happen like that anywhere in other political crimes.
But that speaks volumes about the judicial system, the courts here in Nigeria.
Yes.
Is that something that there's something?
No, of course, that's part of the problem. Yes. All brings us back to the issue of corruption, compromise, and all of that.
And
I want to really get your mind, because coming from law enforcement,
yes,
you mentioned something very critical right now, which is that those officers, they're very low-level officers.
Yes, junior officers.
Junior officers. Now, when it comes to these sorts of situations, I think with Nigerians, we are all outraged, right? Listening to the EFCC chairman yesterday, we were all broken down. I kept thinking about what school takes $702,000? $720,000 as fees. You know, I've been racking my brain around the.
Not even in the U.S.
Around what he said,
yes.
You know, because even I'm thinking, what school takes this? Is it Oxford? What school is taking these kind of fees? In any case, with Nigerians, what I notice over time is that we all are outraged. Give us a week. Give us a week, we're on to something else. Someone has dressed a certain way, and we have all moved on to talking about it. How do we get Nigerians to hold on to things that outrage us as a people? How do we get people to hold on to it and insist that the right thing is done? That's the one on the one side. And then on the second side, on the part of law enforcement, why do we have officers on different levels with different mindsets of what nation building should be, of what the right thing to be done should be in a particular situation? Or do they have no choice but to just follow orders? And who gave them the orders that they're following?
You see, that is why the Inspector General of Police had to give another allegation, be withdrawn from him, and they were withdrawn. Because up there, he knew the right thing to do. But like I said, regrettably, the police, one of the organizations in this country that does not give that regard for training. That's why I find a good number of them who are down below there are not mentally and professionally competent to handle some of those processes. And because of their conditions of service, these politicians just keep on giving them peanuts, percocets, and all of that. And they just do their bidding. So the orientation is not there. And there was even something I was going to suggest, not directly connected to this. We need to expand our school curriculum from the primary to secondary school up to tertiary level in relation to security, the do's and their don'ts. Because if you don't work on the psyche of these people, nothing will change. Today they're to this side, the other side, but put them along the same line, let them remain focused. In every situation, this is what must be done. Stand by the law, stand for the truth. That's why we're where we are today. And like I was saying before we came here, we're in a nation where we defend the indefensible and justify the unjustifiable.
That actually brings to the second part of my question.
For selfish, self-serving reasons.
Yes. How do we change that?
Look, human beings make the difference in the affairs of nations, whether they move nations up or they move nations down. Human beings make a difference. Now you listen to the chairman of EFCC. They will have more of him to stand for the interests of this nation, and they are willing to sacrifice. Nigeria will arise as a nation. You take a simple situation. We wanted democracy. So we have the military that took over everything, oppressing people, using our money the way they were outlaws.
Dictatorship.
So we said, we need democracy, we need freedom. People function best and highest in a state of freedom. So we had to confront them. Are you willing to go to jail? Yes, for me.
How do we confront endemic corruption as a people?
It's the same thing, endemic military rule. How do you confront it? People must rise up, support people who have the courage to stand up for this Nigeria. You strengthen the strength of and the energy and the will of the people. I think it's Thomas Paine who said, for a nation to know freedom, it must will for it. And to know liberty, it must work for it. You have to will for it first and then work for it. The question is, do we have enough people in our nation that have, in simple things, our people must be strong enough to stand up. You are going this way. I was listening to recently a gentleman who was stopping, is it a minister that was taking a one-way? And he said he must go back and take the proper way. In my phase 2, where I live in Lagos, when you are coming out, you have to turn around. If I want to come in, you have to go down before you can come back. But if you want to go, if you want to shortcut, you just dash. So I stopped the guy. He was going to go. I blocked him. But I want to tell you the problem of our nation. I blocked him, and I said, you have to go back. He wasn't listening. I said, okay, stay there. You will not pass through this road. I'm telling you. Heaven may fall, you will not. But here is the problem. The people behind me, they start screaming, let him go, let him pass, let him. So as long as we don't have enough people who are willing to stand up for what is right, stand up for something, instead of falling for just anything in our nation, beginning with the leaders. Principally, the first thing we have to do is to ensure that we have systems that contain the appetite of leaders. Because the problem of this nation is the people obviously follow the leaders because they have become even worse than the leaders. First and foremost, we must have systems that control the appetite, illimitable appetite of leaders. How can you are talking of 720 of Yahaya Bello. How about the Accountant General of Federation, who is supposed to protect our money, who took billions? Money of the nation is supposed to protect. took billions and put collar on his, pretending to be sick. And then when he got to his room, dropped everything. How about the pension man who took all the money of the pensioners? You go on, if you look at it, these are all heads of government and institutions without any control, without any guide, without any direction.
Without, you know, when we hear these things, like I said, the outrage is there. We see all of these things. And of course, we're very embarrassed as a people. But it does feel many times like this outrage is in the media. In fact, that's one of the criticisms against this EFCC chairman. That you go to the media, it's almost a trial by media, so to speak. But when it comes to the actual processes that will lead inevitably to justice being served, we don't see that happening often.
Institutions must be strengthened. That's why America says that our government may be a government of laws and not of men. In our nation, individuals are stronger than institutions. You can never make a nation great when individuals appetites vary, laws are stable, still and stable. I always say in court that a law must be stable, but it cannot remain still. In our nation, individuals are stronger than institutions. That's why a governor thinks he can do anything. He can corrupt, take all the money, and he doesn't have to respond to EFCC because he believes that, oh, I'm a governor, I'm a former governor, and so on and so forth. So until we're strong, and how do you strengthen institutions? People must be strong enough to stand up for what is right within the institutions. I know a woman, a friend of mine, Halima, who was working, is it on Shopee or something like that. And it was a situation in which a wife of the president wanted to do some kind of road. Wife of the president of this nation, I won't mention the name of the president, after increasing the budget, took billions of the money, the little that is left, he wanted to take it over, appointed a contractor, and then sent that contractor to the woman. And then the contractor said from the first lady. And the woman said, how about First Nation Nigeria? You're telling me First Lady. How about First Nation Nigeria? Your First Lady has taken all this money. Now you want to take everything that is left. How? People must be strong enough. That woman represents the betterment of Nigeria. If we have more of them, this nation will be a better nation.
Dr. Barami, one of our colleagues, Ayo, is a very strong person and he's been standing by. So, Ayo, let's...
Well, Dr. Barami, that's how they set you up, you know, so don't even mind him. But, you know, let me come to you, Mr. Ugbaudu. You know, it's about law enforcement. And as much as possible, we want to try to de-emphasize force because in some ways, there is an image that the idea of force, you know, communicates. Now, we are talking here not just about Mr. Yaya Bello. One of the things that was revealed by the EFCC chairman is that some top law enforcement officers were part of his detail. We have also mentioned the issue of Mr. Hadi Sirika, who the chairman of the EFCC also, you know, talked about in all of the conversation. And we're talking about a system being strong enough. How do we compel a system to be strong enough when even its law enforcement doesn't seem to get enough support from the system to do the needful? I mean, you've been, you know, in the police system before, so you would know when some people are saying that the police doesn't tend to get enough attention to do the things that it is supposed to do. Talk to us about that one and how vulnerable it is to water down the effect or the efficacy of the policing system in Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much for the question. It is worth noting that we're in a nation where there is so much overwhelming interference. It's not just in the security sector alone, even the judiciary too. When matters go to court, interested parties will be telling the judges what to do and how to do it and when it should be done. That shouldn't be the case. That's what I've always talked about, standing for the truth, applying the laws, irrespective of who is concerned. And with the police, for instance, a lot of factors come into play. Some of the officers that are there at the head or whatever position they find themselves, some people were instrumental for planting them in those places. So they're like stooges. You must do what your master tells you to do. And that is part of the problem. You see, the chairman of EFCC has said, if Yahya Bello did not honor the invitation, do this, that, he was going to resign. How many people can put their jobs on the line in that kind of situation? Very few of them. Rather than just looking at what they can be given. No. To do the needful or to do the illegality and all of that. So we must have very strong institutions, put laws, legislations in place to checkmate the misnomers, the misbehaviors they do.
Yeah, perhaps that to also emphasize that, Mr. Ogwaldo, if you don't mind me butting in, perhaps, you know, another emphasis that should be drawn, and this is something that has gone on for quite a while. Mr. Olukoide, in that conversation with the journalists responding to a question, also talked about the fact that in the Humanitarian Affairs, Ministry, for instance, he's not only looking at when the ministry was created, even before the ministry was created, the functions of humanitarian affairs has been on for a while. Now, there are those who would say, why has it taken us this long? Mr. Sirika, that is also being investigated now, a lot of noise was made during the time. Look, this thing is not possible. There are certain processes and all of that. But it seemed like maybe, as Dr. Abayomi said, maybe they're just being goaded on by some influences, thinking we can get away with it. But then is there also the issue of the chairman of, the former governor of Kogi State, Mr. Yahya Bello, who Dr. Abayomi also said is probably, I think you also said it, perhaps some people believe that, look, we are above the law because it's our party that is in power. It goes back to policing for me. It goes back to enforcing the laws. It goes back to ensuring that the system does what is needful. Do you think the law is sometimes too slow to catch up to some people, and consequently a number of other people who see that say, look, you know what, if it's taking this long, I can also go ahead and do the same? Talk to us about this is a cycle of justice. Is it too slow? Is it not strong enough to deter criminality in any form or shape?
Thank you very much. It's strong enough, that is the truth. But the application, like I said, the interference is so overwhelming. That is the problem. That is why the process is slow. That's why you see that at times when certain cases are charged to court.
When you say interference, who are the people, or how does this interference come? From where does this interference come?
We'll push this matter up to the Supreme Court. From the High Court, for instance, to the Court of Appeal, to the Supreme Court, all years. Look at the immediate past Minister of Aviation's ordeal presently. It happened during the last regime. Nothing was done. I got to know about all of this. But nothing was done. Yet we had an EFCC at that time. And the chairman, the chairman at that time. It's just now that the matter is coming up now. That's why we recommend the current chairman.
Just a second. The question that I'm asking, if you can hear me. Can you hear me, Mr. Ogwaldo?
Don't be surprised.
Can you hear me, sir?
Surprised that.
Just 1 second.
Surprised that at the
can you hear me?
I can hear
there might be.
I'm not sure he can. It looks like he can.
All right, well, no, okay. I don't know if you can hear me. We'll come back to you, Dr. Abayomi, in just 1 second. The question that I'm trying to ask Mr. Ogwaldo is, and I think Dr. Abayomi has said the same thing, that influences usually come from some other places, some calls, some influences and all. Where do these interferences come from? You'll answer that question, sir, when we return from this break. Just stay with us.
The
future belongs to the dreamers, to the doers, to those who are not afraid of the side hustle. It's for those who are ready to turn their passion into something big. And to help keep you revitalized and inspired, Top Tea is with you every step of the way. You are made for more. Find your inspiration. Top Tea, big round bags of flavor.
Do you know that you can now print all your essential items for events without even having to leave your home? It's the Cast Print Combo Deal for all events. Yes! Weddings, conferences, birthdays, burials, etc. Starting from 495,000 Naira only. You get 50 invites, 50 A2 size posters, 50 16-page brochures, 1 large backdrop banner, 1 roll-up banner, 50 jotters with pens, and 50 souvenir carrier bags. Whatever event you're planning, we can adjust to your budget and quantities. Just send your pictures and other information through WhatsApp, and we shall send a design for your approval. Approve your design, and we will produce with super high-quality digital print technology. We can even arrange delivery to your location. Call us now on 0913-156-5016 or 0812-794-9323 or visit our social media pages. Cast Prints, digital printing at super speed.
With Glovo, you order anything you want, and when you receive it, you celebrate with your whole body. Because when that tasty grilled chicken is here, the weekend starts. The ingredients for your favorite recipe just in time. And when the cake arrives, the party is on. Because receiving anything on Global deserves a dance. Download the app, order anything you want, and track it minute by minute until it arrives. Global, order anything, we deliver in minutes.
Thank you for staying with us. Well, let me take this to Dr. Abayomi right there in our Abuja studio. Well, you've heard Mr. Uwaudu talk about the fact that sometimes interferences come from above law enforcement authorities. And one way or the other, there are those who would say that that would weaken the morale and, you know, the whole process of law enforcement. Do you agree with him? Where do these influences come from? And how do we mitigate it? Otherwise, what you said about strengthening institutions is going to continue to be a mirage.
Well, I have a different view. Interference is effective if you succumb to it as a participant in governance. I think a leader must be strong enough to stand up for what is right, what is proper, what is appropriate, and what is lawful. If you go to the police, and the police is supposed to do his job, and he doesn't succumb to interference, it's not a problem. That's precisely what the chairman of EFCC is talking about. I'm not going to succumb to any influence, and I will do my job according to law. The problem of our nation is impunity. And that is what we were talking about earlier on. A belief that you can do anything and get away with it without any consequences. If you look at America today, I mean, is it even conceivable that a president can be subjected to criminal process? President of America. It's very simple. Why is he subjected to criminal process? Because in America, everybody is subject to the rule of law. An ordinary person will ensure that you cannot intimidate me. We are subjected to the same law. So when we're talking of interference, there will be interference everywhere in the world. In America, they attempt to influence things. President of America attempted to influence situation, election, but he wasn't able to do it because the institutions and the persons resisted. The point is that we need to build stature in our, in our people to stand up for what is right.
Okay, Dr. Abarami and Mr. Baudu,
yes.
We have barely 3.5 minutes, yes. And I have 2 questions I need the 2 of you to weigh in on real quick. Yes. 2 of you weigh in on this within the 3.5 minutes so that we can go. One is that the EFCC so far has about 21 cases against different governors, ex-governors.
Ex-governors, yes.
They've not succeeded in convicting about 3 of those governors. That makes it 24. So 21 cases of governors are still outstanding. And then the plethora of other cases that are, he talked about the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and all of that. Can the EFCC, with this chairman, follow through till the end? Yahya Bello being the 21st case. Now, that's on one side. Then I want the 2 of you to weigh in on this matter of state police, the way we're going about it. How's it going to work out? So I'll start with you, Dr. Abayami.
Well, I believe with determined mind and vision and commitment to this nation and the determination to stand up for something, he will follow through. I'm very impressed with him. He represents us. We that stand up, that this nation must have a new lease of life. I believe he will follow through. In terms of state police, well, it makes sense. If we are doing this same thing and we're not making any progress in this nation, let's try something else. There's nothing wrong with that. If we are working frontally and you are not making a difference, maybe you turn and then walk backwards. Maybe achieve what you want to achieve. So let's try something new, something different, something maybe special. That's my view.
Mr. Baudu.
Yes, thank you very much. The issue of those cases involving ex-governors, the figure you saw 20, how many?
20. About 20.
Very good. That's the confirmation of the issue of interference we're talking about. These people were in office for how many years ago? Yet the trials have not even come to conclusion. And minimum are still coming up. Interference. If it was in APC, and APC is in government, then you have to do something about it. If it was in PDP, and APC is in government, then you fast track that trial. Now, these are the interferences we are talking about. Slowing the process. Slowing the process. Not allowing the courts to do what they ought to do in line with provisions of the law. That's for that. Then state police. In all honesty, I'm in support of state police. But these are my fears. One, can the states fund state police? Because state policing is capital intensive. You need to equip them. You need to motivate them. You need to put a lot of structures on ground. We don't want to start building police stations. Their armories are not fortified. Then these criminals keep on springing surprises, breaking the place and cutting away the arms. No. State policing is very good because state policing means using the indigenes of a state to provide security for that state. Because one, they know the terrain, they know the culture, they understand the language. And if anything happens, be rest assured, they'll get to the root cause of such things. Not bringing somebody from Sokoto to go and provide the security in Bayelsa State doesn't work. And so at the end of the day, we ended up having square pegs and round holes. If you go to some of these francophone countries that border Nigeria, if a stranger gets to any community, in less than 10, 15 minutes, the local chiefs will be informed. And they go and pick the guy up.
All right.
What are you here for? What brought you here? Whom are you here to see? So that's it.
All right.
These are
I'd like to thank you so much. Mr. Felix Ubaudu is a former AIG in Zone 7 and also a lawyer. And Dr. Tunji Abayami, human rights activist and a legal practitioner as well.
We give our support and our appreciation to the chairman of EFCC.
Indeed. Thank you so much for coming in this morning.
I hope they were allowing to succeed.
We hope we won't have any interference. Talking about interference, we will try not to interfere with the business segment on Sunrise Daily this morning. We're back in a moment after the business.
Thank you so much, Nyata. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this side of Sunrise Daily. That's where you have Business Morning, having some business conversation this morning. We're starting, as usual, from the global space. Oil prices extended gains on Wednesday after industry data showed a surprise drop in the United States crude stocks last week, and that's a positive sign for demand, though the markets are also keeping a close eye on hostilities in the Middle East. That, of course, has remained a driving factor of oil prices in recent times. Let's keep our eyes on the numbers now. Unfortunately, I don't have that. I hope I can have that soon. Just took that for granted. Well, Brent features up 26 cents. That's 0.29% at $88.68 a barrel. While for WTI, that's from the United States, that also climbed 26 cents. That's 0.31% to $83.62 a barrel. Talking about that crude inventories for the United States, it fell 3.237 million barrels in the weekend at April 19th. That is according to American Petroleum Institute figures. Also, traders are looking out for U.S. data on oil and product stockpiles is due today. That's in a couple of hours, the timing of the United States, obviously. And U.S. business activity cooled in April to a 4-month low, with S&P Global saying that its flash composite PMI output index, which tracks the manufacturing and services sector, fell to 50.9 from 52. That's a huge drop, but obviously because it's still around 50, it's still in the positive territory. We're also talking about oil, but we come to Nigeria. Dangote Petroleum again yesterday made an announcement, a further reduction in the prices of both, now not just diesel, but diesel and aviation fuel. So diesel is now 940 for a liter from Dangote, to the retailers, and 980 for aviation fuel per liter. And this is coming at the wake of its widely celebrated price reduction, remember, to 1,000. So now it's below 1,000. The price change of 940 is applicable to customers buying 5 million liters and above. Sounds like business now, encourage volume there, while the price of 970 is for customers buying 1 million liters and above. Perhaps we'll see the buyers coming together now to get bulk of this. Talking about this, the person who shared this information is the head of communications of the refinery, Mr. Anthony Chejina. He explained that the new price is in consonance with the company's commitment to cushion the effect of economic hardship on the people of Nigeria. It confirms that Dangote Petroleum Refineries entered a strategic partnership with MRS oil and gas stations. Now, incidentally or interestingly, MRS is asked to be delisted from this stock exchange, so that's kind of curious, because this is when a lot of investors would have looked the way of MRS, but we'll get development on that on our different market segments today and in the coming days. Well, Dangote says that this is to ensure that customers get to buy fuel at affordable price in all their stations, that's MRS, not just in Lagos. I think they also have Maiduguri, and they are looking forward to partnering other outlet stations, not just MRS, but the confirmed one at this time is MRS. Now we come to currency. Another drop yesterday. NAFEX depreciated significantly at the close of trade, lost 71 naira 85 kobo at the close of trade yesterday. So we see NAFEM has gone up to 1,300 naira 15 kobo, all the way from 1,234 naira 49 kobo, while NAFEX, which is always a bit lower, 1,278 naira 68 kobo at 1,206 naira. I did speak to some players in the parallel market yesterday. It went for about 1,240, 230. So, it's interesting times, actually, to see that the rates are now lower at the parallel market, the opposite of what used to be than the official market. NAFEM went all the way 1,315 naira. And of course, closely related to that, perhaps one of the reasons why we see that the rates are lower in the parallel market is because of the continuous intervention of the central bank. Yesterday, there was another intervention from the central bank to the BDCs. At the close, before the close of trade, and central banks sold $10,000 at the rate of 1,021 naira to the BDCs, of course, licensed and approved BDCs. So perhaps that's one of the reasons why we see that the rate at the BDCs is lower. And well, I'm sure they can be round tripping. You can't get dollar from the BDCs and take it to the banks. Obviously, they won't take that from you. So perhaps that's another intentional strategy that the CBN is employing. Now, away from the CBN, but closely related to that, obviously, the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, yesterday they had their annual lecture in Lagos. The meeting explored the availability of credit to the private sector and was an opportunity for participants to highlight the importance of liquidity and chart ways to reduce bad debts. Talking about bad debts, we promised you a conversation tomorrow. It's going to be an interesting one. Some of the factors contributing to bad debts in Nigeria. But today, let's take the report of the lecture by CIBN.
The theme of this year's lecture, improving availability of credit in the Nigerian real economy, the critical importance of liquidity, is apt as it speaks to one of the major imperatives for real growth and development.
The theme of the 2024 annual meeting of the Chartered Institute of Bankers is an intentional effort to capture the realities of the real sector. The audience, made up of bankers, their regulators and associations, government officials and other players in the financial sector, listen as factors which affect credit availability to the private sector are explored.
Nigerian banks are heavily challenged in navigating the cosmos of financial risk of all hues and shades, including liquidity, operational, regulatory, and reputational risk, among others.
For an economy where over 90% of businesses are graded as small, their welfare cannot be overlooked in a conversation like this.
Funding is not a critical need of SME. It's important, but more important is the fact that you need to build up the structure, you need to build up their capacity. You need to capacitate that industry as much as possible to help them to be able to know the right kind of funding that would be relevant to their businesses.
In January 2024, the Central Bank of Nigeria reports that credit to private sector increased to 80 trillion naira, indicating a 93.77% increase year-on-year. However, access and cost of funding still remains a challenge for the MSMEs. Ini John Mekwa, Channels Television News. All right, from the financial sector, we'll go to the most important part, because we have to eat. It's planting season in Nigeria. Of course, we've seen the weather. And yesterday we did talk about how the price of some crops are increasing at this time because it's planting season. How can we ensure that we have all-season crop availability in the country? Above that, what about the quality of seedlings and equipment for the farming? Well, let's discuss this with a farmer who doesn't look like a farmer this morning, the managing director of Banjoko Motunde Farms, Mr. Tunde Banjoko. He's a farmer, but he doesn't look like a farmer, but trust me, he's a farmer. Mr. Banjoko, good to see you in the studio. Good morning.
A farmer is not looking bad this morning.
Yeah, I see that. I guess you have all the tractor and all the equipment, so you don't need to soil your hands, you know, in the process of farming.
It's a mix. We still do both. We have some location where we do strictly mechanized. Even in the mechanized, you still have to mix it with...
Why?
No, there are some menial jobs you can still quickly do.
With your hands?
Yes, with the hands on the farm. So no matter how mechanized you are, human beings still have to work.
Okay, I know in Kenya...
some maintenance work.
In Kenya, for instance, the tea farmers are preaching against or are asking for reduction of mechanized farming. because it's taking the jobs away. But I know we are in Nigeria, we're far away from that.
No, people have to also do a bit of upskill, and it doesn't have to do it, formal education. For example, I remember on one of our projects, we took this motorized sprayer to the farm, and then we taught them how to use it. And some of them embraced it and even wanted to buy for themselves. So simple equipment, and even now we have some mini tractors, handheld tractors that people can use, and you don't have to be educated.
Are they made in Nigeria, though?
Some are assembled in Kaduna, but not, I won't say made. Made in Kaduna. Coupled. I think, thank you for that word. Coupled in Kaduna, and they are trying to distribute because they are easier to use and also cheaper.
All right, so now it's planting season in the country. So unfortunately, we should expect that, it's a norm. At a time like this in Nigeria, we see some crops are more expensive now because it's planting season. We have not been able to go over that seasonal thingy, unfortunately, because I think we don't. Facilities or infrastructure for storage and processing is still a big deal in the country. Mangoes are very available now. I was telling someone yesterday, can we just juice these mangoes and keep them for the next couple of months? Because very soon we'll be looking for mangoes and we will not see. But it seems it's not an area that is popular in the country.
It is. Let me pick from where you stopped. And I'll also use that mango as an example. People are also doing some processing, drying mango, even in this Lagos state now. At least I have a friend, I'm sure she's watching me, that she dries mango so that when you have it in season like this, she mops up from the market as much as she can mop up within her financial means and dries them. So that what she then does is, when you need the mango, you just take it like snacks. And you have it, she does mangoes, pineapple, and some stuff like that, banana, and even pepper soup. Yes, so she freeze dries them, and then you can have it. But there's a limit to what she can mop. Fortunately, we were even talking some days back, she's in band A. And some of them are even saying they will have to probably relocate, stop, because at 77, they were struggling. They were not meeting their numbers. Now with the increase in electricity tariff. What I'm buttressing is people can mop up when we have excess in the market so that during the time of scarcity, we can have them. But they need the funding, the expansion. I'm sure sometimes like we were talking together, she needs fund because all she could mop is whatever little equipment. Our office is not even far from you. Whatever equipment can accommodate. But she was looking for funding to get bigger equipment. You know, the more equipment she has, factories, there'll be employment, then she can mop up as much. So we need to look in that direction of, people want to scale. So what we are saying, people have started mopping up. A lady called me 2 days ago from the US that, Mr. Bajuk, I'm relocating next year back from the US to Nigeria. I was so excited. I said, but this is what I want to do, exactly mango. But
mango is very interesting at this time. So, for me, it's an irony. Yesterday, I attended that event by CIB and Chester Institute of Bankers. And the president there was saying the issue is not funding for small businesses. It's more of building their structure and all of that. I guess the structure will also inform the banks if they can give funding or not. But, in this same Nigeria, we do know that there are very rich guys who sometimes are looking for areas to invest. And then we do have businesses such as your friend you have just mentioned. How do we merge them together? Or is it to win the trust
of the investors?
Perhaps that is where the problem is.
Let me use that same friend as an example. She's a chartered accountant. So when it comes to number, she rose to a level in her career. I won't mention where she left, in the finance industry. So when it comes to numbers, she has it covered. But I think one area with investors is when you talk of agriculture, the example we are using now, the mango, freeze drying and all that. Okay, you want to talk about, can I raise 200 million, 300 million to get my equipment because they are going into infrastructure? I'll get my equipment, do this, do that. Can you wait for 4 or 5 years before we start talking of return? That's one. Not many of them are willing to wait that long. Secondly, not many of them are willing to say, okay, we probably can promise you 15% on your investment, 12% on your investment. They are looking out for Can I get 30? Can I get 40? Can I get 60? I'm telling you. So that's where the bridge is, and that's where the government only can play in terms of the duration and the tenor. Most investors are not, they are in for the money. We get calls every day, but they are always in for the money, not for the passion of, can we resolve some of these issues? We are coming from the perspective of, okay, these are issues. These are places where we should have comparative advantage. What can we do to mop up and revise this situation? But most of the investors, I'm sorry to say, are not looking in that direction. They are looking at it purely as business.
Yeah, well, you won't really blame them. I mean, if I have money, I want to multiply my money. But I think that's where, like, Bank of Agriculture.
There's a CSR aspect of it.
Well,
which, you know, they say in Maslow hierarchy of needs, you get to a level in life, you want to give back. I have somebody I was consulting for recently, and they said this money today we are setting it aside, not to make profit, we just want to give back. So we need people thinking in that direction. If God has blessed you, some people can lose 200 million and nothing, they won't blink an eye. They can lose $1 billion and they won't blink an eye. So
we have cases of 80 billion going on now with ex-governors, so 200 million is actually nothing
to some people. You know, I was talking to a lawyer friend some weeks back. Somebody just died, has 700 million in the Nigerian bank, and they can't access it. The money is gone.
To the banks.
I won't mention. You know, it's gone just about a week ago.
But we also have Bank of Agriculture. I think this is...
okay, let me speak for them and help them this morning.
I don't know about that because, I mean, how many interventions have we had from the Bank of Agriculture?
Because the MD being a friend, they've been looking, I mean, in the Nigerian budget, they've been talking about recapitalizing the Bank of Agri for about 3-4 years, but that bank has not been recapitalized. So, you know, the last time I was with the MD in Abuja, he told me his own constraint. So now I go to the bank, they can't give me more than ₦1 million, above ₦1 million without being collateralized. So you now ask yourself, how many farmers? So I want to take 1.5 million from you, and they don't take movable assets. I have to give them a fixed asset, a landed property in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. So I want to take 2 million from you. I'll give you my collateral. I won't do that.
So thank God you said the MD is your friend, because I've been trying to get Bank of Agriculture. You just put yourself in a tight corner. We're inviting the MD of the Bank of Agriculture. Please tell your friend that we want to talk to him on the program. And we want to find out, let him come and tell us, because what we're seeing is farmers do need help. We've heard a lot about Bank of Industry and what they're doing, but we do not hear a lot about what Bank of Agriculture is doing.
As of last year, they wanted to also go digitalized, because now a lot of their processes are still paperwork. And the generation of farmers we have now are not interested in filling. I want to do this, come to the bank. They still use cash book in Bank of Agri. So in this day and age, so I think their restraint is the fact that they are not getting the right funding and capitalization that they need. So probably the present Minister of Agri will prioritize them, because if we get it right with Bank of Agri, I'm one of those who believe we'll start seeing some changes in their
because I mean, if just being practical,
they do 9%.
Yeah, like Bank of Industry also.
Where you are talking of 40%, 38%. How many of us can go there? And you now go to the smaller banks, the microfinance, 48%.
Yeah, that's worse.
So it's worse, but at times farmers are pushed to the wall to take it.
And agriculture is sensitive because you cannot fast-track the process. You have to wait.
You have to, because for example, last year, a lot of poultry farmers shut down. Feeds was just going up.
Yeah, poultry
price was going up. And so Bank of Agri, I guess, maybe I'll speak to the MD, will probably make a attempt.
Well, we're inviting you, Managing Director of the Bank of Agriculture, inviting you to Business Morning. I think there are some questions. Perhaps you help us clarify, because we are saying that the Bank of Agriculture is not making as much impact as it should. We have reasons. Well,
I'm sure
Mr. Banjoko says he's your friend, so it's great to meet you.
He will make our time. Either probably we'll go to Abuja studio and speak from there.
Okay, we'll be expecting that. So thank you so much, Mr. Banjoko, for your time. We wish you the best this planting season, because this will determine your harvest. Yeah. And we hope the weather favors you. I know you were so happy when it rained. Was it 2 days ago?
Yes, yesterday.
It was a prayer answered.
It was a prayer answered.
Thank you so much for your time. Yes. All right, so let's move from the food and agriculture to the money, the raw cash. The bank well, related to the bankers, as we know that bank recapitalization is one of the top news that we have in Nigeria at this time. They do have 2 years, but they have to the end of April, which is just in a couple of days, to share their plans to recapitalize. We'll have joining us for this conversation now the Chief Executive Officer of Atlas Portfolio Limited, Mr. Muyiwa Adeyemi. He's also non-executive director of Association of Securities Dealing Houses of Nigeria. Getting ready to be busy at this time, Mr. Adeyemi. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Great. Good to have you on the program. So I see that...
It's a pleasure being here. It's a pleasure being here.
Awesome. So you guys are getting ready to be busy because the banks are coming to raise funds at the market. What is being put in place in readiness for this?
All right. Before I answer your question, I want to say that the banks coming to the market now is it's something that has happened long before now. Very quickly, I taken time to look at the banks in Nigeria and banks across the world, and it will surprise you to find out that the capitalization of the third largest bank in South Africa has a capital base of about 128 billion rand, which if converted to naira, it comes to about 8.5 trillion naira. So you can see that Nigerian banks cannot be competitive in Africa, talkers of in the whole world. And if you look at so many of our banks, and then look at the capital base in terms of asset base of most of these banks, Nigerian banks don't even fall within the first 50 or first 100, which is a negative for our banks and a negative for Nigeria and people. So now back to your question. The capital market has a nature that will play a major part in raising of these funds. Already sitting down, not just for the stockbroking firms, but for the operators generally. So when these banks start popping up, we have looked at the errors and the mistakes of the past recapitalization in 2005 now. And then we have picked up those mistakes of those times, and we're making preparation to make sure that those errors don't repeat themselves down.
All right, so the market is, you did say that our banks are not as strong as, as other banks, yes, as you have said. Now, how do we get the investors ready? For instance, I was talking earlier about how MRS has indicated that it would like to be delisted. Now, things like this could send uncertainty down the mind of investors. We want to have the markets flooded now, even though it's the banks that are coming in now. But how do we get investors ready for this flurry of opportunities that will be available in the markets?
Okay, the first and major thing is make sure that we have every Nigerian taking into consideration that's market inclusiveness. Everybody is it's a market for every Nigerian that cuts across even the world. So number one, it is important we look at educating investors. A lot of investors don't have the perfect understanding of our market. That's why you see some small investors go to money market to borrow short-term funds and want to play the market of long term. Most times they get their fingers burned, and that has played itself in time past. So now what the market will do, and in conjunction with the operators and even the bankers, is to ensure adequate education of Nigerians who will be participating in the market, number one. Number two, there will be so much of the use of technology. Technology never presented an opportunity during the first capitalization of banks, but now that will be deployed so that every household gets the opportunity to invest. And, products that will narrow down on how we can participate would also come up. So those are three basic points that will be built on so that investors, potential investors, can participate in the market.
All right, so the other one is the economy. Some people have talked about the regulator, and the regulator has said it is ready. The economy getting ready for this, I mean, it's going to be huge liquidity coming in. What changes do you see it? The CIBN, for instance, they're talking about more credit to the private sector, but you also have the issue of bad debts and culture of how do people really want to pay back the debts and all of that? So how do we get both the real sector, the economy generally, ready for this liquidity that is about to come into it?
It has to do with so much policy. The policy that the government must deploy. Before now, the capital raise, you can see I kept referring to the past raise and then looking into what we should expect in this new capital raise. The capital raise at that time, I think at that time, the banks were able to raise about $3 billion to the banks. But you realize that most of those funds that were raised didn't get to Nigerians. The Nigerians that had access to those funds at that time, well, probably less than 3% of Nigerians had access to borrow funds. So it didn't impact the small and the small scale businesses. And if you don't have, if any policy does not impact on the small scale businesses, then whatever the policies are, it's not, without having a better word to use, is close to useless. You know, so I believe the government at this time should ensure that whatever funds are raised gets to the bottom of the bottoms. You know, gets to the root cause of to the low income earners. We have a lot of Nigerians today who want to do small petty businesses but don't have access to loans from banks. Either the collaterals are extremely too much, or the conditions for these loans are just out of this world. So that is very, very critical. Whenever these funds are raised, each policies must be in place to ensure that it gets to the medium and small scale enterprises.
All right, thank you so much. I mean, that certainly is something that should be considered, because more liquidity in the banking sector does not automatically mean more funding to the real sector. Thank you so much. Chief Executive Officer of Atlas Portfolio Limited, Mr. Muyiwa Adeyemi, and also Non-Executive Director of Association of Securities Dealing Houses, Asham. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anytime.
All right, now we head to the market in just a couple of minutes now. Unfortunately, the NGX is back on the negative trend. Yesterday, it dropped 0.06% and still on 99 trillion naira. There you have it right there. I have 0.35% there. And the equities cap is 56.16 trillion naira. Activity chart in the red, unfortunately. Top trades, top pickers of profit taking again yesterday are still the banking sector. There you have it. UBA, Access Co, and I think GTCO was also there for the top trades. A lot of profit taking still going on in the market. Let's just look at other market. I think we have just about a minute or so. The smaller unlisted market yesterday was also, if we could have the smaller unlisted market, the NESD, that was in the positive. And then there you have it, in the positive 2.70%. Market cap get a bit stronger, just a little bit, 1.5 trillion naira. So that's looking good for the fixed income market. We know this is the reigning market at this time. Investors are flocking there. There were 29 deals on the NTB, worth 59.9 trillion naira. Right there, and we see a lot of activities at the April 2025, which is a bit longer because you have the July 2024. These are shorter, so we see a bit longer, but the yields are so good now. I think for the 1 year, you're still having more than 20% yield, so who doesn't want to make money in a short time? If we can see the federal government bonds for yesterday also, I think we had about 28 deals right there worth more than 20. There you have it, 27 deals worth 11.28 billion naira. So, well, we'll have more information and fresh figures from the market at 1 p.m. Ladi will be here. Will Ibong will be here, especially to give you details on the market. Looking for investment opportunities, you might just get it at that time, so you don't want to miss Business Incorporated. I'm in John Mekwa. We head back now to the Sunrise Daily Studios.
Welcome back, and thank you very much, Ini, for that session of talking money and talking business. You know, that matter of how much you're going to harvest is also dependent on what are you planting. Are you planting well? Are you following the principles of planting? Ini has talked to you about the harvest season and the planting season going to the harvest. The rains have started in some parts. Some parts are still battling whether we're having rains or storms. But be that as it may, what are you planting to determine what your harvest is going to be? Talking about what we're planting and what we're likely to harvest, we're going to a segment to be talking about the state police conversation. Yes, looking at the state police conversation. How would the state police function? What would it be like? How would it relate with the federal police? These are all conversations that are going on at the moment. But while that is going on, there is a justice summit, because at the end of the day, when the courts give their ruling, the police will have to enforce the rulings of the court. And so there's a justice summit going on at the moment in Abuja, and the CJN, it was put together by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and the Nigerian Bar Association. And the Chief Justice of Nigeria is there and says the onus lies on the judiciary to deliver justice to the people at all times.
And of course, in attendance at this particular Justice Summit, of course, Mr. Justice Olukayode Ariwola, and of course, Senate President is also there as well, Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, and the NBA President, Yakubu Maikel, and the President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Monica Donga Mendes, is also here. It's a very important conversation that has to be had. When we're done with the policing part of the job, it then gets to these guys.
Yes.
Then we now start to hear things that we didn't think about.
And then you get to find out that what someone that the police had thought was guilty
may not be by reason of not being able to properly present your case.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I think the conversation really has started among Nigerians. We're moving away from the outrage, and I think that's part of what we're talking about in the last segment. Moving away from the outrage of what has happened to the actual processes that lead to the justice that you want.
At the end of the day, it's about the institutions that we have and how effective those institutions are. So having said that, let's bring in our guest today. Mr. Laolu Konde is a former presidential aide to the former vice president, Oshibajo, Professor Emir Oshibajo. Thank you for joining us here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And that conversation about state police, before we even get there, the EFCC and Yahaya Bello, that conversation is also burning real hot and boils down to, some will say it boils down to the question of justice delivery. We had two courts of concurrent jurisdiction giving rulings that seem to have, like they are short-circuiting each other.
Yeah.
How's that playing out for you?
Well, you know, first I wanted to say, you know, regarding the Justice Summit that, you know, this is quite one of the more important things that we need to deal with, the question of justice reforms, you know, because, you know, it has a lot to do. I mean, I think just like both of you are saying, when the investigation is done, it gets to the judiciary, and we know all of the problems that happen there. So this Justice Summit hopefully can address this issue, and we can move the question of justice sector reforms forward. And we must commend the Attorney General, who seems to be a silent person trying to get things done. We must commend him and hope that this will lead to something that can transform the judiciary and the entire criminal justice system. Now, but to your point about the coordinate calls and all of that, my take is that the law is meant to help society to deliver good. So I will leave the lawyers to sort out the technicalities. What we know is that we have EFCC, an agency that is assigned the task of investigating corruption and financial crimes. And that agency, to us, laymen, regular people, common sense, has said that, look, come and answer to some of the things that we have. We want to hear your take so that we know how to take this forward. Now, to have a former governor try to, not follow through to say, okay, yeah, what questions do you guys have? To try to, try to break the system, bring up all issues. And I'm sorry, quite a few of our legal minds also throwing up what really becomes a mumbo jumbo. We don't want to get involved in the technicalities. The point is that how are we best served as a society? Is it by somebody making himself available to be interrogated if there are charges against him, or should we tie ourselves down to the technicalities of law? Look, the choice is very clear. We want the process to go forward. And so we must encourage former Governor Yahaya Bello, to redeem himself. There is still time to redeem himself by surrendering himself to the EFCC, answer their questions. We've had people like Fayose. In the case of Fayose went there. He didn't wait for them to invite him. There are over 20 former governors that are being tried, against through EFCC. Yeah, and it is a billable offense. So I think Governor Bello has just really messed himself up by turning this thing into a big deal.
Former Governor Bello, but at the end of the day, the dialogue of the state, this state police dialogue. I just had a conversation with someone, and we're talking about how would this have played out should there have been a state police. The federal police or the federal agency has an issue against this man saying, come and answer to this. And there is a state police. Would they have been able to do anything? Would the state police, seeing that this man was our boss, would they have allowed themselves to have been used to hide him, or would they have given him up to the federal agency to go and answer?
Yeah, because even when we have state police, the federal government is not going to completely abandoning some of these policing functions. Now, you know that, for instance, in the U.S., where they have state police, they even have local government police and all that. They are still what they call the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. So I imagine
in our case here, the federal police.
Yeah, okay. But there are jurisdictions that are normally highlighted that this is where you come in. These are federal crimes. These are state crimes. So I don't think that will be the problem. I think the problem that we are dealing with on the question of state police is that yes, there is now a national groundswell of opinion in this country to say, hey, let's have state police. The question is, how do we ensure that the governors don't abuse state police? And it's a very important conversation that we must have.
So,
what's up?
Because I don't want him to say that and just move on from that.
I wanted him to clarify that. You see, that dialogue of what pertains to the federal, what pertains to the state might be the starting point. Maybe that's where the issues around who is supporting and who's not supporting the state police conversation. Your former boss spoke about state police at one time, and indeed, he gave a directive when he was acting president for the commencement of what? Community policing, right?
Yeah.
All tending towards, or assumption out there that it was going to build up to the establishment of the state police infrastructure.
Right.
What happened?
Well, as you know, that even the party, the APC subscribed during the campaign to the idea of state police. But I think President Buhari, didn't quite like the idea. So he was not really keen on state police. And, he has his own reasons. Now, but what the acting president did then was to give instruction to the Nigerian police to ensure the establishment of community policing. And that was basically like a stopgap measure. That, look, if you can't go all the way to have the state police, let's ensure that we have effective community policing, which is part of the reasons the people want state police, because they say that, look, if you're in a state, you know the geography, you know how the environment, you know the people know themselves, they have grown in the place. So community police also delivers that, so that was what we were trying to do. But I think I also would like to say at this point that I like the idea that the Inspector General of Police had to make a clarification yesterday of what he was reported to have said. Look, President Bola Tinubu wants state police. So you can't have the Inspector General of Police going out, to say that no, we're not going to have state police. So I commend him for clarifying that, where that was just the personal opinion of the AIG. Because the discussion about state police now is not whether we should have state police.
I mean,
It's a question of
we can have an hour's conversation on this particular segment that you just brought up now, because Mr. Ben, who represented him, said, "I am representing him."
Yes,
and then when everything happened, all of us talked about it. Every TV show, every newspaper had it on.
Yeah.
Immediately after that, we saw a video from the same Mr. Ben saying, "No, these were my views. It is not the view of the Nigerian police." What we still don't know is what is the view of the Nigerian police then? Are they for state police? But I want to get to that shortly, because we're running out of time.
Right.
This whole thing that happened with Yahaya Bello has actually brought up the question of what a state police would do in that situation. In the Yahaya Bello matter, the police that are with him, guarding him, had to be removed. You remember the AIG removed them
eventually
because they basically put up a standard against the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and that is federal police. That has been assigned to him. Now imagine if he was in charge of state police and state police were the ones guarding him. Do you think that things would have been worse than they are right now? Because that is the argument of people against state police. Is that if you have a mini czar somewhere who has this army with him, you would not be able to arrest him. You would not be able to even come near him. You would not be able to contest elections in his state and be opposition. These are some of the issues. Now, at the time when Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo was in office, I remember when this conversation of community policing came up was when he was acting president. And, it was very important at the time because he made a distinction. These were still policemen who would still be funded by the federal level. They were still going to be, central police, but they would be involved in community policing. That's a better option than having actual state-run police.
Okay, thank you, Kela. I still believe that we need a state police, that is controlled from within the state. Yes, there are issues. You're going to find this kind of situation where a governor might be able to use the state police, actually abuse the state police. There are abuses of even the federal police. Don't forget that we had NSAS in this country. That's federal police, and it happens every time. So I think we are better served under a system where the people in the state, the authorities in the state, have the final say on what the police does, rather than this big country, 36 states, everybody waiting on Abuja for important operational command. So we should have state police, but we must ensure that the governors don't abuse it. And there have been all kinds of ideas, involve the traditional rulers, involve the state assembly, make sure that, the power to appoint and to fire a state police commissioner is not absolutely in the hands of a governor. And there are other kinds of ideas that can be developed to ensure that it's not abused. But yes, those scenarios they're possible. The only way to sort it out is to say, this is your own function, this is your own responsibility, and everything is codified.
Okay, we'll take a moment and go on a quick break. When we'll come back, Ayo will kick in. I guess he has a couple of questions for you. Just stay with us.
Do you know that you can now print all your essential items for events without even having to leave your home? It's the Cash Print Combo Deal for all events. Yes! Weddings, conferences, birthdays, burials, etc. Starting from 495,000 Naira only. You get 50 invites, 50 A2 size posters, 50 16-page brochures, 1 large backdrop banner, 1 roll-up banner, 50 jotters with pens, and 50 souvenir carrier bags. Whatever event you're planning, we can adjust to your budget and quantities. Just send your pictures and other information through WhatsApp, and we shall send a design for your approval. Approve your design, and we will produce with super high-quality digital print technology. We can even arrange delivery to your location. Call us now on 0913-156-5016 or 0812-794-9323 or visit our social media pages. CAS Prints, digital printing at super speed.
The National Assembly Joint Committee on Electoral Matters reminds all invited Southwest youth organizations and their representatives to the Southwest Zonal Legislative Interactive Session. Theme: Legislation and the Participation of Young People in Elections. The Emerging Trends. Date: 25th and 26th April 2024. Time: 10 a.m. Venue: the Signature Tower Hotels and Suites, GRA, Jericho, Ibadan, Oyo State. The Southwest Zonal Legislative Interactive Session will provide an opportunity for young persons to engage with the Joint National Assembly Committee on Elections on their electoral reform priorities. The outcome of these and many others will be part of the input for the reform of the Electoral Act 2022. This event is supported by the National Endowment for Democracy, NED, Kimpact Development Initiative, KDI, and the National Democratic Institute, NDI.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Well, Mr. Akode, it's good to see you again, but allow me to play on words this morning. From your inside sources, what are some of those information that people need to have that can help them to take informed position on this issue of state police?
Well, you know, I think the most important factor, in my view, is what everybody already knows. We are having very persistent problems of insecurity, and it seems everybody believes that, look, if we break down, you know, the law enforcement authority into smaller parts, they might be able to be more nimble, more agile, and better to address the problems in their own environment. I don't think, Hayo, that I have any immediate inside sources information, you know, on that issue. But I think it's likely the fact that we have been dealing with this problem of insecurity. The federal police is struggling with it, and we think that if we decentralize and keep the authority in each state, it might get better. And I think we owe it to ourselves as a nation to try it.
Maybe I was just trying to reference your program coming up, I think, tomorrow. Well, in the meantime, you know, there is one other question that a number of people have continued to ask about this whole conversation about state police. We didn't just have state police back in time. We had regional police. We even had local security systems back in time. So there are questions around what happened then, and have we been able to investigate how we had to stop it at that time, and so that we don't get back to a situation where we have to reverse ourselves again. Have we? Do you think that that conversation is necessary? Because in all the issues that have been raised, all I hear, all everyone has been hearing, just as you said, is that the governors are going to use it and all of that. But that's just one leg of the conversation. There are those who also believe that even at the federal level, the politicians, the leaders themselves have been using this, you know, security apparatus to their advantage. So do you think it is necessary for us to look back? What happened back in time? How come we had it back then, we don't have it anymore? What was responsible for us collapsing the policing, the decentralized police into one, And how do we ensure we don't get back there again?
Okay, so two things. What happened then, in my view, is that we had the the military government coming in to play politics and to be in charge of governance. Under the military tradition, it is command and control. So any ideas of decentralizing power centers it contradicts the military tradition. So the military came in and they generally unitarized everything. Of course, we know that under the regions, there were incidences and cases, quite a bit, of where the ruling party in the region can use, the state police. There is the famous example of, government will dump, if you are a political opponent, they will dump a dead body in your backyard, and by morning the police will come and arrest you, what happened to this guy that we find dead. So we had a lot of that happening then. Now, my point is that even now, there are still issues of abuses that we are trying to deal with, even with the federal police. I think there has been quite a bit of improvement in the federal police. We must say that, but there are still issues. And there will always be issues around policing anywhere in the world, even in the United States. So the important thing that we must do is to look at the regulations. How do we establish it in such a way that these abuses are reduced as much as possible? And one of the ways that I think we can do that is to make sure that in the states, the governors don't have absolute control of the appointment and the firing of police commissioners. There must be the involvement of traditional rulers. Very important. I think it was General Abdulsalami that made that point at the police state police conference that was held a few days ago in Abuja. The traditional rulers must be involved. In each of the states, we have a traditional rulers council. I think they should be involved in the appointment of a police commissioner, and then the state assembly, and possibly with some involvement of federal legislators from the state, should also be involved in the removal of a police commissioner. So we must make sure that the state governors don't have absolute control. And there must also be the rules of engagement wherein the federal police may have to come in, if the situation is getting out of hand. So these are the things that has to be.
Well, perhaps it's all about process. I mean, when you talk about the appointment of the police commissioner in the state, for instance, there are those who would argue that even at the federal level, there is a process that is supposed to go through, the appointment of an IGP should go through, that it hardly even goes through it now. So what's to say that if the federal government is not following its own process, that the state government, should follow its own? For instance, there are those who argue that the IGP, the appointment or the substantive appointment of the IG is supposed to be something done through a particular, a process at the federal government that doesn't happen at now. But, be that as it may, every state has a security council of sorts, and every local government they have their own security councils as well. Now, do you think the legislation we have now is enough? On the one hand, whether it's enough or not, if and when we get to the point where we have the state police systems in place, should we have a uniform law for every state, or we have to have different laws for each state? Because then that will beg the question of the differentials in how the entire system is approached. What's your take on that?
So to take it from the last point, because we are meant to be a federal republic, so we are meant to have a federal constitution. So the constitution must delineate, what a state police ought to look like. Generally, say that okay, this is how a state police will function, on the broad sense. But yes, each state should also have the liberty to determine some of the more the fine details, okay? And I think because we have different, we are a country of nations, we have over almost 300 ethnic languages and groups and all. So we should allow states to be able to reflect a part of their uniqueness. But our constitution, our federal constitution, ought to give a broad idea of how a state police should run. Now, to your earlier point about the appointments currently under this constitution, the 1999 constitution, as amended, as lawyers will say, the police council is the place, and I think Mr. Falano has made, he has said this over and over again, even though it's not happening. The police council ought to be the place where the Inspector General of Police is appointed, and issues about the operations of the police ought to be discussed. But the governors and the governors are the members. They are the ones that ought to insist on the implementation of that aspect of our constitution. For the most part, the governors have been silent because, I guess, if a party is in government, they have 20 or 24, 26, 28, 30 governors. They see the president as some kind of an emperor. Nobody wants to be seen to be obstructing him. But the law is clear. And the governors who are the members of the council, they ought to be the ones to be saying that, no, this is not how our law says to appoint the police commissioners. But they'll be silent on the matter.
Indeed, Mr. Lalo Akonde, I want to thank you so much for coming in this morning. This conversation around the state police definitely is not over yet, and I'm sure there will be other pockets of conversations, expanded and small, as the case may be. Thank you once again. Mr. Lalo Akonde is a former aide to the former vice president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. Thank you for coming in once again.
Thank you so much.
And that is where we will want to say thank you for letting us be a part of your morning. We do hope you enjoyed the conversation. Till we bring you another edition again, this is me saying goodbye. I'm Neota Igbe.
I think I enjoyed today's conversation because we started talking about bullies, and bullying was the theme for the rest of the day, how to stop bullies in their tracks. So let's incorporate that as we move into our lives, how to stop all the bullies around you. I'm Kayla Magwa. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Sounds like even this conversation is about bullying, ensuring that the governors in office don't bully their opponents with state police. But hey, Amaya Makinde, do have a wonderful rest of your day.
Stay connected to the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com. Click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime,